They had heard whispers about the forest for years, stories told in low voices around dorm rooms and late-night izakaya tables, ghosts that whispered in your ear, lights that moved in the mist, people who walked in and never came out. The Yamara Forest wasn't as famous as Aokigahara, but it was older, more remote, and, if you ask the locals, far more dangerous. Tucked into the northern mountains of Honshu, it wasn't on tourist maps, and even Google reviews had a warning. Do not enter past dusk. You will not like what you find. But to Rina and her friends, it was just the perfect story for their YouTube travel vlog. 5 university students, Rina, Daiichi, Aya, June, and Leo, armed with GoPros, battery packs, and the invincible confidence of youth, set off to explore Yamara as part of their Haunted Japan series. They planned it for weeks. It was meant to be a day trip. Hike in around noon, shoot a few creepy segments near the ancient shrine deep in the woods, and hike out before sunset. That was the plan. Things began to feel off before they even arrived. The road leading in was crumbling, covered in moss and roots. A handwritten sign at the forest entrance read, "Beware the spirits, do not stray from the path." They laughed, of course. Filmed it for the vlog. "Creepy local warning," Rina said into the camera. "Classic horror vibes." But the air changed the moment they stepped beneath the canopy. The forest swallowed sound, no wind, no birds, just the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant groan of ancient trees. Aya swore the temperature dropped 5 degrees in a single step. Jun, ever the skeptic, joked it was just atmosphere. But even he grew quieter the deeper they walked. They reached the shrine by 2:30 p.m. It was a crumbling thing, carved into stone and swallowed by vines. A weather-worn torii gate marked the entrance, but half had fallen, and the other leaned precariously. The offering box was rotted through. Rina knelt to place a coin in it anyway, out of respect. That's when she heard it. A voice, software childlike, right behind her. "Why are you here?" She spun around. No one. Her friends were 10 feet away, joking about the collapsed roof of the shrine. Rina didn't say anything at first. She brushed it off as nerves, or maybe the wind catching just right. But a few minutes later, Aya let out a sharp yelp. She pointed to the trees. "Did you see that?" They all turned. Nothing. She insisted she'd seen a figure, small, pale, maybe a child, standing between the trees watching them. But it had vanished as soon as she looked back. That was the first time they considered leaving, but Jun insisted on one more loop around the shrine for B-roll footage. "Just 5 more minutes," he said. That's when things got worse. Their compass app began to spin wildly. GPS stopped working. The sun was still above the trees, but everything suddenly looked darker, flatter, like the shadows weren't falling in the right direction. Leo walked a few steps off the path to get a wide shot of the torii gate. They lost him in 30 seconds. He was only 10 meters away. They could see him between the trees, and then he was gone. They called out, panicking, running toward the spot where he'd stood. No answer. Then his voice, distant, muffled, like it came through water. "I'm right here." They turned, but his voice now came from the opposite direction. "I'm here." Then again. Guys, always a different direction, always just out of reach. They eventually found him, standing in a clearing with his back to them, completely still. When they touched his shoulder, he gasped and jumped like he'd just woken from a dream. "I was just filming," he said. "I didn't move. You were the ones who disappeared." It was 4:06 p.m. They'd lost over an hour. No one said it aloud, but they all felt it. Something in the forest didn't want them there. They began hiking back immediately. No one filmed, no one spoke. That's when the whispers started. Rena heard her name, soft and slow. "Rena!" Aya heard a child crying. June heard his mother's voice, who'd been dead 5 years, calling him home. Leo heard footsteps, always just behind him, never visible. And then the forest began to change. The trees started looking the same. Every path, every clearing, even the fallen logs were repeating like they were caught in a loop. They marked a tree with a red bandana, then saw the same bandana again 10 minutes later, tied to a tree in the opposite direction. They had walked in a circle without turning once. June finally snapped. He threw his camera into the woods and screamed, cursing the forest, daring whatever was playing with them to show itself. The forest answered. The light dimmed instantly. The air grew thick. A gust of wind blasted through the trees, the first wind they'd felt all day. Then, figures, pale shapes between the trunks, faces without eyes, limbs too long. One by one, they emerged from the fog that hadn't been there a moment ago. None of the students moved. No one spoke. They just stared, frozen, as the shapes began to drift closer. Rena finally screamed, "Run!" They didn't pick a direction. They just ran. Branches whipped their arms. Roots clawed at their feet. The forest stretched around them, unreal and endless. But then, the Torii Gate, old, splintered, real. They burst through it like breaking surface from deep water, collapsing just beyond the path. The air outside felt alive again, buzzing with insects, smelling of wet earth and pine. They didn't speak again until they were back in the car, silent, shaking, covered in scratches. None of them posted the footage, not that it mattered. Every SD card, every file was corrupted, static, black screens. One file had a strange humming noise, but nothing else. They never spoke publicly about it, never returned. But a year later, Rena got a DM on Instagram. No name, no profile photo, just one message. "We remember you.